Right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm here today with someone who needs no introduction, but I'm going to give one anyway. It's Sara Frazetta. So, first, Sara, you're a super babe. I was so excited to interview you because I'm shallow. I am like unabashedly shallow. And if you want me to pay attention to anything, slap a beautiful woman on it and I will full attention. So, I'm just delighted to be here.
Oh,
Um,
it's so nice to be here. And you are now an official part of the Frazetta Girls company with that understanding of life.
Well, it's wonderful. Getting you as our keynote speaker was such a win for us. When we found out that you said yes, we were all so excited. All of us students were just like, yeah, like that's amazing. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you
Um,
for having me. You guys have been wonderful to work with, all of you.
we appreciate that. As you all may know, Sara is Frank Frazetta's granddaughter, legendary lineage. And I'm sure, as most of you here with us today know, Frank Frazetta is responsible for the Conan the Barbarian visuals that we're all familiar with today. In the 60s, he did the artwork for the Lancer paperback Conan stories. And it could be argued, though I don't think I'd get much pushback, that Frazetta really did so much to cement, promote, and elevate Howard's writings. He gave us this kind of visual language to accompany Howard's work. But back to Sara. She runs Frazetta Girls with her partner Joe Weber and also co-founded it with her mother Holly Frazetta in 2013. Frazetta Girls is dedicated to preserving and celebrating the legacy of the legendary Frank Frazetta. In 2023, they launched Icon Collectibles, bringing Frazetta's characters and artwork to life in the form of museum quality collectibles. And you're an absolute powerhouse um, and have been absolutely instrumental in preserving not only your grandfather's legacy and introducing it to new generations, but also Robert E. Howard's through that, which I think is incredible. Like I was looking at Frazetta Girls' Instagram following, and you're at like almost 500,000 people. And that's clout in today's world. That's a lot of people that, are exposed to this work. That's, yeah, amazing. So,
Thank
with the
you.
intro in the bag there, I'm going to pass it over to Sara herself with the
Thank you.
presentation.
All right, let me get to the shared screen. One moment. We have to get a Robert E. Howard. Okay, was that successful? Perfect.
Yeah, it looks good.
Beautiful. A pulp writer from Texas and an artist from New York never met, yet somehow their imaginations found one another. I put a great deal of thought into that concept because when we talk about great creators, we often talk about the beginning. We focus on the moment a world first appears on a page or on a canvas. But what interests me more is how a work of art leaves the hand of its creator and it finds its way into the imagination of someone who wasn't even born when it was created. But before, I just want to stop sharing real quick. Okay. Before I'd like to continue, I'd like to thank Professor Garstad at MacEwan University, and I'd also like to extend my gratitude to the Dark Man, the Journal of Robert E. Howard, and Pulp Studies, Jeff Shanks, our multi-panelist wizard, and East Texas A&M University for inviting me to be the keynote to this wonderful conference. Okay, back to the sharing again. Sharing and the unsharing, it should be so seamless, but it's not. Okay. Here we go. When people learn that I'm Frank Frazetta's granddaughter, they often assume I grew up surrounded by masterpieces. And they're right, I did. But when I was a child, the artworks were simply paintings hanging on the walls of my grandparents' home. My grandfather's art was everywhere. It hung in hallways, they were in piles on the ground, some sat unfinished on his easel, some smaller pieces were shoved away in drawers. A few of the artworks frightened me, some fascinated me, but most of them became as familiar as the antique furniture or various collectibles and oddities that were also around me while I was spending time in my favorite place. When I was a child, I did not yet understand that millions of people around the world recognized those artworks. I didn't understand that they had helped shape the visual language of fantasy. And I had no idea that my grandpa was coined the godfather of fantasy art. As a young adult, I stepped into my role in the family business, and with new information, new connections, my perspective started to change. I met people who became well known illustrators because of him. I met people who went on to become Imagineers at Disney. I met the senior art director from Blizzard who pointed to a single Frazetta paperback and told me that was the one he saw, which made him pursue a career in art. I've become acquainted with film directors who credit their entire career to Frazetta, people who lost everything they owned in a house fire, and the worst part for them was losing their Frazetta collectibles. And over the years, I slowly began to understand something. The paintings that were hanging throughout my grandparents' home weren't just works of art. They were landmarks in other people's lives. And the more stories I heard from others, the more curious I became about the story of my grandfather's life and his career, specifically all of the parts that I wasn't around for. And with all of this knowledge, he is no longer just grandpa to me. Now he is grandpa and legendary artist Frank Frazetta. With all of the newfound curiosity brewing, I also became deeply interested in the origins of the stories that his famous artworks grace the covers of, because as powerful as Frazetta's images were, the worlds of people associated with them originated elsewhere. When I dove in, I discovered many of Frazetta's most famous works depicted written worlds by legendary writers Edgar Rice Burroughs, others from the dark genius mind of Carl Edward Wagner, and some of the most profound led back to the adventure stories by Robert E. Howard. As most of you listening know today, Robert E. Howard died in 1936 at the age of 30. And every time I stop and think about that number, I find it astonishing because most people are still trying to determine who they are at 30. Yet Howard had already accomplished something most writers spend a lifetime attempting, and he successfully created worlds that would outlive him by nearly a century. What makes that achievement even more remarkable is where he did it. Howard spent most of his life in Cross Plains, Texas, yet imagined civilizations so convincing that readers continue exploring them today. But of course, the Hyborian Age didn't emerge in a vacuum. Howard absorbed history, mythology, archaeology, folklore, travel literature, and the popular science of his era. He borrowed freely, he synthesized relentlessly, and he transformed disparate influences into his worlds. It is important to note that all of that, it is important to note all of that because as a culture, we often speak about originality as if it emerges fully formed in one single imagination. But the historical records suggest otherwise. They're built from inherited ideas, inherited symbols, inherited stories, and then transformed by the individuals who received them. And Howard understood this instinctively. After Howard's death, there was no guarantee Conan would survive. Like countless pulp heroes of the period, he could easily have faded into obscurity. Instead, a succession of passionate individuals carried the work forward. Glenn Lord, L. Sprague de Camp, Lynn Carter, heroic signatures, Jim Zub, Jeff Shanks, who you heard from today, publishers, editors, collectors, fans. The afterlife of Conan is constructed by many, which brings me to one of the most overlooked figures in the Conan thread. Let me get to him. That is Roy Krinkle. Roy Krinkle, you see, is on the left screen. That's my grandpa on the right. I will confidently say that most discussions of Conan moved directly from Robert E. Howard to Frank Frazetta as though the connection was seamless, and it wasn't. Roy occupied a fascinating position within that lineage. He was my grandpa's closest friend. He was an artistic influence and an intellectual counterpart. Unlike my grandpa, Roy was deeply, like many of the people you heard today, immersed into Howard's fiction. He knew the stories intimately. He knew the atmosphere Howard was trying to evoke. More importantly, he understood why those stories mattered. He loved Howard's work and was deeply involved in the growing community of Howard enthusiasts and scholars that emerged around the work in the decades after Howard's death. Like Howard, Roy knew history very well. He admired artists who came long before him and was happy to show everyone and anyone a new source of inspiration. When Lancer Books acquired the Conan stories in the 1960s, Roy became, in many respects, an interpreter for his friend Frank. He suggested scenes, he shared ideas, he discussed the historical references and directed Frank towards moments that might lend themselves to visual treatment. Shortly before the Conan assignments, Roy introduced Frank to the work of Czech illustrator Zdeněk Burian, which I will find. Here he is. What fascinated Frank was Burian's prehistoric figures, ape men, Neanderthals, and primitive tribes rendered with extraordinary physical credibility. And looking back, it's difficult to not see traces of those figures lingering behind some of Frank's earliest visions of Conan's world. And Roy's role did not end once the ideas had been discussed or the assignments were received. He remained an active participant in the process, offering criticism with the same enthusiasm he offered encouragement, and Frank welcomed it. One of my favorite examples concerns the cover for the Conan the Adventurer, which you see on the left of the screen. After my grandpa received the original painting back from Lancer, and I will add this, everyone was losing their minds over it, saying it was the best artwork they'd seen. The first edition was already flying off the shelves. Well, Roy took a look at it and he studied it for a moment and he said, "It looks great, Frank, but he doesn't have a neck." And when you really look at it, he kind of doesn't. Roy was correct. So what you'll see on the right is the repaint. So rather than simply just offering his opinion after he told my grandfather this, he walked over to the painting, he took his knife, and he scraped Conan's head from the canvas. He actually scraped the oil paint down to the bare canvas. My grandpa didn't argue, he didn't defend the painting, he just sat back down at the easel, picked up his brushes, and repainted the entire section to Roy's satisfaction. And again, you can just see the difference left and right. It's obviously a better repaint. But of course, even with Roy's commitment, none of this would have happened with another key figure who I wish I had a picture of, but that's Larry Shaw. Today, Larry Shaw's name is not nearly as well known as Howard, Krenkel, or Frazetta, yet his role in Conan's history was enormously important. As editor at Lancer Books, Shaw understood that republishing Howard's stories was only part of the challenge. The book needed to attract an entirely new generation of readers. They needed to stand out at crowded bookstore shelves, and Shaw understood the power of imagery. According to Krenkel, Shaw's directive was simple. He wanted Conan to receive the same kind of treatment that James Bama gave Doc Savage. And Bama's covers had helped redefine a pulp hero for a new audience, and Shaw believed Conan deserved the same opportunity. Frank Frazetta was chosen because he possessed a rare ability to communicate an entire world through a single image. In many ways, Larry Shaw understood something that many publishers sometimes overlook. Because readers choose to enter a world through curiosity. A single image invites them to take the first step. But what Shaw could not have known was that these paintings would eventually become inseparable from Conan himself. The books were intended to introduce readers to Howard's world, but instead they helped create one of the most influential partnerships in the history of fantasy. By the time readers encountered that very cover in the bookstore, the image appeared complete. Yet behind it stood conversations, friendships, criticism, revisions, influences, and years of shared interests and enthusiasm. The finished painting was not a product of a single moment of inspiration. Frank never met Robert E. Howard. Yet for millions of readers around the world, the two have become inseparable. And if you stop to think about that for a second, it's a little strange. Robert E. Howard died in 1936. Frank painted his first Conan cover nearly 30 years later. Howard never saw a Frazetta painting, and Frank never had the opportunity to ask Howard a single question about the worlds he created. And yet somehow they became creative partners in the public imagination. Millions of readers cannot think of Conan without picturing Frazetta. Likewise, many people first discovered Frazetta because they were drawn in by a Frazetta cover. One man supplied the words, the other supplied the imagery, and neither of them intended to work together. Neither of them could have planned it, yet together they created something larger than either might have achieved alone. And I continue to find that remarkable. History tends to present the creative influence, like I said earlier, as a series of straight lines, but in reality, it's often far stranger than that because ideas travel unpredictably. They cross generations, they move between mediums, they find new interpreters in places their creators never anticipated. Sometimes two people who never meet end up sharing one another's legacy. Influence is a force, and all art has a way of escaping their creator's intentions. And once those readers stepped through the portal, the world also no longer belonged to Howard, or nor did it belong fully to Frazetta. It became a much larger conversation stretching across generations of readers, artists, writers, collectors, publishers, and scholars. And that is the real afterlife of world building. Creating the Frazetta Girls brand, stop sharing the screen for a second, but creating the Frazetta Girls brand has given me a unique vantage point from which to observe that process, because every day I encounter evidence that these worlds are indeed alive. We hear from collectors who discovered Frank's work 60 years ago, and from young artists encountering it for the first time on social media from a viral post. We hear from readers who arrived through Howard and discovered Frazetta, and others vice versa. And what has become increasingly clear to me is that we are not merely preserving original art, creating collectibles, publishing books, or collaborating with brands. We are participating in an ongoing conversation. A conversation like today, a conversation between Robert E. Howard and the readers who continue to discover him nearly a century after he first put his pen to paper. A conversation between Roy Krenkel and Frank Frazetta, between writers and artists, collectors and curators, parents and children, the past and the future. At Frazetta Girls, every project begins with a simple question: how do we make sure the conversation continues? And sometimes that means working with collectors to an exhibit of original paintings so future generations can stand in front of it and experience it firsthand. Sometimes it means publishing archival books that document stories which might otherwise be lost. Sometimes it means producing a new comic, creating a collectible, or partnering with a modern brand that introduces Frank's work to someone who's never even heard of his name. Those projects may appear different on the surface, but their purpose is all the same. They create another point of entry into the conversation. And one of the most fascinating parts of my job is seeing those entry points appear. They rarely happen when you expect them. A lifelong collector may spend decades searching for a particular painting, while a teenager discovers Frazetta through a video game, a t-shirt, a social media clip, or an action figure. Someone may arrive through Conan. Someone might arrive through Death Dealer. The doorway is different, but the result's always the same. It's curiosity. And curiosity has a way of traveling backwards through time. Culture is not inherited automatically. Every generation must choose to participate in it. That is why preservation alone is not enough. We often speak about preserving artwork, preserving archives, preserving history, and those things matter tremendously. But preservation without engagement eventually becomes storage. And the goal is not simply to save these works, it's to keep them alive, to create opportunities for someone to encounter them for the first time and feel compelled to continue the conversation themselves. That is the story of cultural transmission. Again, not a straight line, but through a chain of imagination stretching across decades, with each person leaving a small fingerprint before handing it to someone else. And for a brief moment, that responsibility rests with us, not as owners of Frank's legacy, but as temporary stewards of a conversation that began long ago before we arrived and will hopefully continue long after we're gone. And what we choose to do with it will determine whether that conversation continues. And that's it. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. Everybody, just up the applause here. That was a
Oh,
great presentation. Well, I wanted to open it up to questions. So if anybody has questions, please put them in the chat. I do have one here from Denny. Let's see, where was it here? Sarah, have the Frazetta girls had to deal with a lot of copyright infringement issues? By the way, your photos are very interesting.
thank you. We ourselves have been making a lot of things right in terms of copyright, because as I mentioned, my grandfather illustrated worlds of Edgar Rice Burroughs, of on magazines of creepy and eerie that had stories that went along with them. Robert E. Howard. So we've been really with Frazetta Girls trying to partner with the rightful owners, and together as a force, we're able to protect the copyright even more. So I would say, ironically, we had some infringement going on in the beginning that we had to take care of. But I think, like, overall, like, just people swiping Frazetta, there's definitely, we're a very litigious country. So I think there's a lot of weariness to just swipe anything. But yeah, overall, it's been, like I said, partnering with rightful IP owners. I think we're becoming quite the force.
All right. The next question is, Sarah, do you have a personal favorite of your granddad's paintings?
I do. I have a lot of favorites, but my personal favorite is his Golden Girl watercolor. I wish I had a visual, but his Golden Girl watercolor was, for me, it was the beginning of his career. It was painted in the 50s, and I love his work from the 50s because he had something to prove. And he wasn't the legendary, king. It's like when Spielberg said he did Jaws, right? He just became Spielberg and he could do no wrong. My grandpa in the 50s wasn't the legendary Frank Frazetta. So something with Golden Girl is very special because you could just really tell that he had it in him, specifically in that painting, to show the world who he could become.
All right, I have from Mitch. I have a small collection of your grandfather's art, but some volumes of art books have been out of print for some time and beyond my price range on the used market. Will there be any reprints of his art books, especially the sketchbooks and his ink work? I feel those are often underappreciated, and I'd love to see more of them available.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of books that I personally don't have. Some of the best ones were from Arnie Fenner, but as far as old publications, there's been a lot of changes within publishing. And for Zeta Girls, we actually opened our publishing company last year and put out a book called Fine Lines, which actually highlights all of his ink work. Not all, but a small percentage of his ink work. And we will continue to put out publications through sometimes working with other publishers like we did with Taschen, and then sometimes through just directly our own publishing branch.
Hey, that's awesome to hear. Let's see. From Jerry, I believe we have, if Frank Frazetta were alive today, what world building slash universes do you think he'd want to partner with to create art for? Great job, by the way.
Well, I think he would really love to be able to work with, obviously, the Conan world. That's a no brainer. But I think, knowing what I know about my grandpa from reading interviews and talking to people and knowing, obviously, him personally, I wish I was a little older when I was able to have long form conversations with him so I could have asked better questions. But I think he would really want us to develop some of the worlds that he created that were his own, specifically Death Dealer. And I think there's just this really, it's really important to me to get something going with that. It's also fun to continue to develop his world that he created with Ralph Bakshi, which was Fire and Ice, through comics, and there's still so much to be explored. So I think the right answer for Grandpa would be Frank's worlds.
Excellent. All right, from Aurelia, we have, when are you coming to Howard Days?
Oh gosh, I got to go with Jeff. Jeff, you're gonna bring me to Howard Days. Maybe I'll go next year.
100%.
I keep thinking about how hot it must be there in June.
It's not any hotter than Sarasota. I mean, it's the same.
It's true.
It's
It's
six to
110
one.
index today. It's really bad.
I know. I mean, I'm there and it's like everybody's complaining. I'm like, hey, it's Florida. Yeah.
Well, we're not usually this hot in June, though. It's
That's
usually like
true.
September. I'm like, I think we're gonna melt in September. We won't
We
be
would
here.
we would love to have you there. In fact, Aurelia's texting me while she was doing this. You've got to get Sarah to come to Howard Days, and we need to do an art panel.
I
I'm like, all right,
promise. And then if not next year, the year before what is it? Wait, before 2030.
there you go.
Stamp it.
Nice.
Stamp it.
All right, next question I have. Textually, the Fenner books were far superior, but the reproduction was better in the more recent Spurlock books. What does Sarah think about the quality of the Spurlock books?
I think, obviously, with technology and everything, that yes, the scans can be more accurate, and just better reproductions, and we're gonna do better than his books.
Nice, I like that. Very self-assured.
Mm.
From Al, I have a completely self-indulgent question for Sarah. Did Frank ever discuss Scotland or Scots in regards to his work, be it neoclassical artists like Rayburn? Oh, I can't pronounce that. Runciman, sorry, Runkeman, or Nasmyth, or contemporaries like Angus McBride.
He did not. And if he had ever heard of them, it would have been through the person I mentioned earlier, Roy Krenkel, because Roy Krenkel was the well read scholar who really helped my grandpa. My grandpa was a sports guy, so you just, he wanted to talk baseball and cameras, and that's maybe sometimes film, but that was about it.
All right, from Charles, we have, do you know anything about Frank's collaboration with, is that Jim Silk or Jim Silky on the Death Dealer paperbacks? If so, could you elaborate just a bit? For example, did he give Silky, any story ideas?
So my grandpa was notorious for going back and forth on things, something you all mentioned a little earlier on the panel. When a project wouldn't work out, he would say he had no involvement. And but before the project would launch, he would say that he had a lot of involvement. So because I wasn't there, I can't confidently say did he or didn't he. I do think that he okayed certain themes, but do I think he sat down and actually read them when they were finished? No. And I think he was just kind of waiting, like, okay, is this it? Do I get my Conan now? And it didn't happen. People like him, but it wasn't. It's he wanted a definitive story. He ultimately he and my grandmother were very interested in merchandising and branding. They wanted it to go to the top. They wanted to make a lot of money, and they ultimately, with the books, wanted it to become adapted to a film. And that was what James and I go back and forth with Silky or Silk. I think it's Silk, but I think ultimately that was what he had proposed, that Frank, this is going to get really big. I have Hollywood connections. We're going to make a movie. And that never happened. So he was very disappointed on all of the promises that never came through for his big screen debut of Death Dealer.
From Ian, we have a Frazetta Conan movie would be incredible, very dark and sexy, and I have to agree, that would be incredible to see. We have a question here about pie. Are you ready for the pie question?
Pie.
Yep. If you live in Sarasota, what's the best type of pie to get at Yoder's?
I've never eaten a pie at Yoder's. And I've been here for so long. I'm one of those. I've been gluten intolerant for so long. Sorry, I'm
Okay,
the
we have
that millennial.
from Jerry. Before starting Frazetta Girls, were you aware of your grandfather's impact on the sword and sorcery in general? His paintings were the reason I got into reading fantasy.
No, I mean, I when my family started feuding, and I was like, "Who's grandpa?" Like, of course, like I understood, right? I'm around the paintings. It's all in the house. Like I meant that when I said like it was everywhere in the house. It was just part of them. And because grandpa didn't really talk about his influence, I, I had no idea. I mean, James Cameron is a fan of his. If seventh grade Sarah knew that James Cameron was a fan of my grandfather's, I would have been like, Grandpa, please, I need to meet Leonardo DiCaprio. Like I was obsessed, and I didn't know. And then it wasn't until like they started feuding and we started knowing prices of the artwork. Like I was like, wait, what? And I mean, my grandma was truly a gatekeeper. She kept everything hush hush. She was the one that dispersed my grandpa's money. She handled everything. And my grandpa was just kind of like this humble, sweet guy that was a masterful fantasy creator of that inspired so many. And I think part of it, like I again for adding context, is that my grandfather by that time had a lot of health issues. I was watching videos of him the other day from 2010, like right before he passed away. And, he could barely speak. He had so many hits, 8 strokes, and he had this autoimmune disease. And I don't know if any of you have been through like thyroid issues, like you truly, hereditary, but you can't think of words and you're just like blank. So I don't think my grandpa at the time could really even convey any of that or share memories or talk about his influence if he even wanted to, which is unfortunate. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall in the 70s with that Frank Frazetta.
Well, it's fun because my intro to Robert E. Howard was actually through an art book at a bookstore that I used to work at, and it was a Frazetta art book. And again, with the beautiful women and how much I adore them, it was that I was pulled right to it and I was like, what is this? And so Frazetta was my intro to Robert E. Howard. So yeah, just a tremendous artist.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got another question. Where did it go? Do you have any plans for other high-end detailed figures from Frank Frazetta's paintings? Not even his fantasy work. There are so many figures that could be brought to 3 dimensions. How far do you plan to take it, or are the few you have done the goal?
Jeff Shea. Don't worry, Jeff, he's coming. Mothman. Yes, I mean, that's the beautiful thing. Again, bringing back to world building. My grandpa has so many. It's endless. It's like what Jim Zub said about the worlds when he goes back to the origin stories of Robert E. Howard. There's so much to explore. And that's how we feel with Frazetta Girls, where we're so blessed. We're so damn lucky that we get all of this. Of course, we don't have a endless cash flow. Otherwise there would be so much more, but we're really building with like no other investors or nothing. Like it's just all the money, not all the money we live, but most of the money we made over the years. We didn't start becoming profitable till 2020. Just goes back into the company. We to make an action figure, I want to share it because it's such a crazy cost where it's like mind blowing. It's like $60,000 to bring an action figure to life. And it's like, that's a lot of money. So to be able to take these big risks, like, I mean, it was scary at first, but everyone's been so supportive and we continually grow with Icon Collectibles. So yes, we will hopefully explore every single one by the time I'm under the ground.
Putting a dollar amount on that is so sobering. Like 60,000 for one figure? Oh my goodness.
Like I'm very like my grandpa, like very Sicilian in my ways of thinking. My partner Joe is the opposite. He's like, it must be done. Send the wire, and I'm like, without Joe, I don't know if Dark Wolf would have been made at first because I'm like clenching to every dollar, going, but, and he's like, do you want to grow this or not? So yeah, it's a lot of risk taking for sure. You hope that the fans are there and action figure community is there, but they've been there, and we keep learning and growing. And Tigra had some hip issues at first, and you get punched down, you take a lot of risks, and you make mistakes, and you get humiliated and go, that was bad, and then you keep going.
Well, I guess thank goodness for Joe
Thank
and
goodness for Joe.
loose grasp on money. Yeah, that's great. Okay, from Randy, I know a lot of his original work is now in private collections, selling for astronomical amounts, and a lot of his work was also held by the companies he was commissioned by. Does Frazetta Girls or the museum intend to reacquire those pieces? Are there any particular, well, I guess that's one question in itself. I'll move on to the other ones after. So,
Yeah,
just,
so the artwork that was remaining in my grandfather's possession in 2010 was split amongst his children. My grandfather was very casual about his art from the beginning. He and my grandmother were selling it, trading it, sometimes repainting Princess of Mars because they sold it and then they were sad about it and he needed another one. It was kind of like a very emotional process to selling, but also a rooted, grounded reality. And for all of us, we need to make money to live. That's just the reality. So selling original art was how they made the majority of their money. Yes, my grandma was she was pretty business savvy, and she started a poster business and sold calendars and statues, but it was a marketing strategy, right? Like the paintings aren't attainable, but they always were for the right price. My grandpa, actually, a side story, he tried to sell the original Conan the Adventurer, the Conan, for 100,000 in the 1980s, and they brought it to auction in New York City, and it didn't sell. And then he took it home, and then he made a comment in a later interview and said, "It's never for sale." okay. so that was just what they did. Again, like I said, it's a beautiful thing to be able to have the art and share it with people. I've had the privilege of working with my mom, who has a lot of original art, and a private collector here in Florida named Ken, who has graciously loaned his art collection, and we had an exhibit here in Sarasota. We are working with Lucas, and Lucas Museum will have a lot of Frazetta originals for people to go see in a more convenient location, LA. So I think, again, realistic with prices. I don't know if I'll ever be able to afford an original oil. The prices are going crazy, and I think I don't also sit on this position of the family should have it. No, my grandpa sold that. And the person who took the risk and spent their hard earned money on that original at the time, that's theirs. That's how it works. So I buy what I can. I have a little beautiful living legend preliminary coming to me in a couple of months from now, who I purchased from the Imagineer I mentioned in my speech, and I'm grateful for what I can have, and that's all I can do.
Are there any particular pieces that you would really like to have back?
All of them. I mean, I'm mad at my 20-year-old, 21-year-old self. Stupid me. I actually separated all of the art for my aunts and uncles and mom, and I didn't get one. And it's a daunting thought, right? Like, you hear those investment stories where they're like, yeah, I had an opportunity to invest in Starbucks or Uber and I didn't. And I thought it was a silly idea. Well, that's how I feel about the Frazetta art. I had my grandpa sitting right there, and I could have said, Grandpa, can I have one? He even tried to offer Joe, my partner, who was close to my grandpa at the time, everything. He said, Joe, would you want to take it and do something with this? And the family was kind of already going through it, and we're like, Joe's like, no, I don't want anything, Frank. And again, kind of funny how life just has other plans. Here we are, both in this position of Frazetta girls, just like my grandpa, I guess, knew was going to happen somehow, some strange way. But yeah, I didn't think of it. It was grandpa. I didn't think of the value. It was, like I said, the antique in his house.
Uh-oh. I'm frozen. I don't know what's going on with my Zoom. Can you still hear me?
We can hear you, LeeLa.
Okay, it's just my camera that's being fussy. Okay,
There
there we
you
go.
are. You're back.
I'm back. Um, okay, let's see. Is a wide traveling gallery a possibility? Oh, that would be fun.
That
Because
would
you
be
said
fun. But it
in
probably
LA.
it probably won't happen. Only because everything, I mean, God bless if like a collector does it one day. I've naively said that to my mother and my aunt and uncles at the time, and they were like, yeah, you gonna insure it? No. So to find people who are willing to just be so gracious and charitable and say we're going to do that. I mean, you'd be surprised. Like, that's why I'm so happy the Lucas Museum is opening, because George understands the importance of illustration art and how it is indeed art, and what he's done, and to build that and to finally give illustrators the respect they deserve. It's been so needed for decades now, because the walls that we have hit with museums in New York and like galleries, and no one really even local museums that I won't name, they don't want anything to do with Frazetta. We for years we were contacting, and does anyone want to have an exhibit? Can we talk about this? No, no, thank you. We're not interested in the subject matter. So that's just something that is a reality. I can't. I can say us personally funding that and being able to do that, probably not. But never say never. Lucas has a nice budget, so who knows? Who knows what will happen?
Is that the exhibit in LA you were saying?
The museum.
The
He
museum.
will have. Yes, he has a. I think it was does anyone know the price of that museum? I think it was like $1 billion. I don't know how much it was, how 100 million, something insane to build it. But he has so much artwork. I mean, he has an entire section just dedicated to Frazetta and then Norman Rockwell and it just the list, Maxfield Parrish, the list goes on and on for these illustrators that inspired my grandfather, Joseph Clement Cole. Like it's just incredible. Like I would encourage anyone interested in art to go on and look at like the magnitude of artists that he's going to have displayed there. It's something that there's so much bad in the world, right, that we can focus on, but that right there is something where I'm like, this is good. This is good for the world, and this is a positive moment to really cherish and think about often.
Okay, next up, I have an anecdote, not a question. From Mitch, a friend of mine, an artist, got to meet your grandfather at his studio many years ago. He had nothing but great things to say about your grandfather, and your grandfather flipped through my friend's sketchbook, pausing on one sketch. Your grandfather said, I like her. She's got a nice ass.
That's grandpa. That's
From Brandon, we have, can we expect another wave of retro action figures?
Yes. It will be announced very soon because right now we're waiting on wave one, which was supposed to be in like 2 weeks ago. And crazy, we got an email that the delivery driver had food poisoning. I'm like, what? I'm like, is this real life? but you know, we're all humans, but I'm like, can you find someone else to deliver our pallets, please? So yes, soon after those come in and we start shipping, wave one, wave two will be announced.
Super. Did your grandfather have a favorite artist? That's from Patrick.
Yeah, grandpa loved Wyeth. I mean, he absolutely loved him. I mean, grandpa, I could ramble on about it, but I'm gonna shamelessly plug my YouTube. I have two YouTubes that I've put together on my Frazetta Girls YouTube about my grandfather's favorite artist specifically and his influences. So I would recommend checking those out. That was through the help of Arnie Fenner, who was doing all of the best, in my opinion, best Frazetta books ever. And there's really, I mean, I could just, like I said, Joseph Clement Cole, like I could go on and on, but there's a lot of history in those videos, and that's where I'd recommend going.
Awesome. So you heard it. Go to our YouTube channel and get the answer.
Just for the education. I don't want to hate doing that, but you know.
No, I don't hate it. You got to grind, you know? From Trish, we have, would you consider coming back home to PA and promoting at your uncle's Frazetta's costume store? I know collaborating with the museum would be a dream for the fans minus the drama.
No. And I'll keep it short. No.
All
You
right.
can do your own research.
Um, from Al, you had something even more precious than his paintings, his love and time. Not a question, but a nice sentiment.
I did. I was the first grandkid of 11, and I was very, very fortunate to spend a little bit of time with him, at least 5 years with him, where he was still in pretty good health. And those were, you know, subconscious years. Unfortunately, we don't remember a whole lot from ages 1 to 6 years old, but I was, it was the craziest thing. I had this memory come back to me. Um, Maybe my thyroid was doing better, but I remembered the first time we watched Fire and Ice, and I'm going to talk about it soon, but I was like, oh my God, like to get to experience that with him. I think in those years, he was, like I said earlier, able to talk about his thoughts and creativity and share more things with me. And so I'm very, very, I guess, like I would say, honored to have spent that time with him. And then grandpa started fading, sadly, but he was still the cutest ever. Me and him, he called me Joanne because he couldn't get the names right of everyone. So he'd call us like various names that were from his other family's names, and anyone that's gone through like families, families that have like dementia and stuff. Like it can be hard, but we tried to keep a good sense of humor about it. So to make him feel better about his confusion, I would just go with it. I'm like, Joanne's here. And so like I have a lot of like quirky memories with him of being a annoying teenager, 20 to 21.
Oh, that's sweet. From Laura, we have what was his creative process like? Are you privy to that knowledge? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think his it was quick. He didn't like to mull on things too long. There were a lot of stories that came out later in his life that he just whipped one out in one evening in 2 hours. That wasn't completely true. He had a process where he did rough works, sometimes multiple rough works. Like I said in my keynote, he was advising with Roy Krinkle for many, many days, many, many hours. He did work very fast, and I think that was because of his former years being in comics, and you had to work fast. He had that speed; it was a natural speed. So he would mainly do 1 to 3 rough works, and then he would just get out whatever cheap material he had. He'd pull masonite from the basement, which was a famous story about his Neanderthals painting. He took a canvas board and used the cheapest paints or whatever he had, and he would get it done on the last minute because he would rather be out playing baseball or doing any kind of athletics than actually working.
And I'm seeing if we've got any other questions here. We've got a thanks for a lot of the grounded responses, which, yes, thank you so much. Um, okay, you mentioned he painted in oil before. Was that his main medium? Did he use a variety of others as well?
He didn't start painting with oils till he was 30, which is crazy. Like, I mean, now I mentioned this, it's important again to mention his health issues. He was 54 years old when he started having issues with his thyroid, and he took a few years off from even creating. It was post production of Fire and Ice, and he was really going through it. So it's 24 years of oil painting, and he put out some of the most incredible freaking oil paints ever. Um, Oil paintings ever, and he liked painting with oil. It was forgiving, right? He could wipe the Conan's head off and start, but I think I would confidently say he was a master of the ink brush. He was just his pen and inks were mind blowing. When I look at his artwork, I notice the watercolor, because if anyone's ever tried watercolor, it's not forgiving at all. If you mess up, you're done. You need to throw it away and walk out with your head down in shame. So to like go back to Golden Girl, which I mentioned earlier, that was watercolor, and it's insane. And so I think he liked oil for the commercial jobs, right? So he could go back and repaint them and do his thing. But yeah, I would say number one. I also have to bring up graphite pencil. He loved working with pencil because he said he could smudge. He'd lick. I remember Grandpa. He was using his left hand at the time, but he'd lick his finger, and he was really messy with his art. It's so funny because so many people are like, Frazetta is like the holy grails, but like they were so casual. Like there was this one story actually about Conan. I'm rambling, but Conan of Cimmeria, Frost Giants. He brought it to a convention in the early or late 1970s, and he was taking it out of something that he brought it in, and the snow caps, the ice caps fell off the painting, and they were like, oh my god, a Frazetta painting is ruined. Oh, and everyone's like, oh, and he goes, oh, it's fine, and he just like licked his finger and like put it back on and continued. And that's just Grandpa. He was very nonchalant. So it kind of, to answer the question, it was kind of like just whatever he was in the mood for and whatever was easier, whatever was available at the time.
Oh, here's a good one. Do you think he'd have smiled at all the fantasy vans of the 1970s, which had airbrushed versions of his works painted on their sides? I remember those vans from the 80s too. I grew up in a small town in Alberta, and I remember one guy had like a Conan-like painting on the side of that van.
That's so awesome that you saw one. I've actually never seen one in person before, which I'm jealous, LeeLa. But I know he liked them because my mom told me when they actually moved out to Valencia, California to film Fire and Ice, he saw a van on the highway with a Silver Warrior on it. And he was like, what? That's so cool. Like my grandpa did, he really, as like I said earlier, he was such a contradiction because at one point, yes, he wanted money and the success and everything else, but like he also wasn't like they're using my art. He was so happy when people would pay homage to him, and he was so like that's what he looked at it with the Vans. He was like, "That's great, put it everywhere."
What a gracious, cool dude.
He was really cool.
From Trish, we have thank you for the Fire and Ice and the collaboration with Dynamite Comics. I'm excited for Dark Wolf.
Oh yes, oh, it's been Dark Wolf's been great. Smooth sailing. We'll have all the issues out on time. Fire and Ice, the main series. We've had some trouble, but we will eventually get all 6 issues done, and it will be in a trade paperback, and it will be glorious. I just don't know when.
All right, well, it looks like we've run out of questions, so I'm going to give you guys some time to think of some new questions. I've got a couple soft ones to lob at you here. So what's it like doing this kind of work? Like, is it frustrating most of the time? Is it really satisfying most of the time? It's such a vast and kind of like heavy thing. Like, not only are you preserving the legacy of your grandfather, but you're also effectively shouldering the legacies of others through all of your collaborative efforts with your businesses and doing events like this. Is it mostly satisfying, mostly frustrating, bit of both?
A bit of both, and not to say on a certain day. It could be a few years of frustration or um, a few years of bliss. I don't think I've gotten the bliss, but a lot of pressure if I think too much outside of myself and think how it could be perceived, which is something I did a lot in my 20s. I'm almost 40 now, and thank God with age comes wisdom. So I have been, I would say, maturing to understand that it's not as serious as I once thought in terms of like how judgment comes in, right? All we have to do is know our intention and have that integrity and remember the forefront is what would my grandfather think? Um, and then just proceed with that, right? There's going to be a lot of hard times, but I would say the hardest times, I mean, I went through a 6 year lawsuit. I think it was 6 years. And that was scary. I will say when I was served, it was in 2018, and I think I just had turned 30. Yeah, and I'm like, how am I gonna back to the money? How am I gonna pay for this? Oh my God, like what's one of our biggest fears in life is being in a lawsuit. It's scary, and having gotten through that and going, okay, it was a defining moment in developing and understanding that yes, it's my grandfather. It can sometimes be challenging, right? Because it's my grandfather, it's sentimental, but it's also a brand, and we are trying to really merchandise and grow it, right? So there's a balancing act that's always going on behind the scenes. There's been plenty of times where I look back and go, what's I doing? or things that I look back and go, that was very performative, right? Like, why? What am I do? Who am I? What? Why am I so? Why was I so insecure? But now at my stage of life, I look back and I'm like, it's just a maturity thing. So yeah, I think everyone in any business you're in, there's good times and bad times, but everything you go through is should fuel you as knowledge, and that's part of the process, right? Life is always going to be bad. There's always going to, you can't avoid it. I tried to avoid it. I tried to avoid it with controlling my health, this, that. You gotta stay grateful. You have to stay grateful in the really bad times and go, I know this is going to pass, and even if it doesn't, I'm still happy for XYZ.
Beautiful. Okay, I'm not going to ignore this question. I'm going to say it. It's from Al. Last self-indulgent question. Did Frank have a favorite dinosaur that you know of?
Oh, T-Rex, for sure. My grandpa was really upset that there were not more accurate depictions of dinosaurs when he was painting dinosaurs. He said that multiple times. He was like, "Oh, and I can't think of the artist off the top of my head, but when I don't even know, maybe it was the Discovery Channel, but when he started watching TV later in life after his strokes, and he really started watching TV, I remember him and many family members remember him saying, why didn't I know they looked like that then when I was painting them?" So yeah, he liked the ferocity of, and T-Rex, of course.
Good answer. I like the T-Rex too. Jeff thinks that on the vans that you should start licensing auto wraps.
Like things like that. I mean, I don't know. I think you all should go out there and paint your own mural on the van. We need to escape the digital world sometimes and get back to like the renaissance of like using our hands. That's what I think needs to happen.
From Jerry, we have anything coming up for Frazetta Girls that you're really excited about that you haven't mentioned today that you can publicly say, of course.
I'm just in the weeds right now. I'm in there's like sometimes, and I'm sure all of you can relate. Sometimes you're just like in this like limbo of like there's so many things happening, but like nothing's truly materializing yet. Like you don't see the end. So I'm at that stage right now. A lot of publications that are just absolute chaos right now, but they're coming. I just don't know when.
Okay. Anything coming up for, oh, nope, just read that one. My bad. I really enjoy the deep dives you get into in your YouTube channel. What are some topics that you are exploring in the future? Maybe a filmed visit to the Lucas Museum?
Oh, that's a great idea. If I'm allowed, if cameras and everything are allowed, I put that on my vision board this year. Picture with George Lucas in front of the Frazettas. So we'll see if that becomes a reality. But yeah, I think I sometimes I feel like I've explored everything and then magically something else will pop up and I'm like, no, I haven't told that story of grandpa. One story that has been really near and dear to my heart for a long time. I don't think it would surface on, I know it wouldn't surface on YouTube. It will come some other way. Um, I don't want to put it in a box, but my grandparents' story of their life, like their real story, not this mythical. Sometimes there's like exaggerations, but the story behind the man that I barely knew because I wasn't alive then, but the story through people that I'm, again, my family, friends, my grandma told a lot of stories. She was a yapper. So she told me everything. I got all of the dish, the tea from grandma. And I find it such a it's just it's a story that needs to be shared, and not because he's Frank Frazetta. It's just such a great story. Like it's such a great, heartbreaking, tragic, like love story that's infused with. I mean, it's poetic. It's a little uncomfortable. So I've been working on this story now for 13 years. And I don't know when it will be fully developed, but it's something that I will share at some point because I think my grandparents would want it to be shared.
Al says, like the whole wide world did for Robert E. Howard and Noveline Price. That's the movie, I think, about their love story, right? Yeah, I would watch that. I would watch the crap out of that. That sounds amazing.
It was like it is amazing. I mean, those two meeting in the 1950s and just like everything of like dynamics of like power shifting through the years and what we all go through in personal relationships and just understanding, like I mentioned earlier, like humanizing him too, in for passionate fans of saying like guys, he was like a person like all of us, right? He had contradictions, he had his vices, he had his things. We put on this mask, this face, but we're all humans. We all have our things, and I think my grandpa really wanted that side of him to come out, but at the time it was like, my grandma, she had a very different mindset. She was very like Christian oriented later in life, and she wouldn't let a lot of things be seen that because it's academic that I won't get into. But there was that side of my grandpa who wanted to kind of like let it all hang out. And so there's just so many different stages of their life and like their story together, and these two very different people, but and how they started. So yeah, that I could go on and on, but I look forward to sharing it one day.
I think we all look forward to watching it one day. That sounds amazing.
Watching it, there you go.
Like hint, hint.
Happening in right now, manifesting.
Clifton says maybe you could get a ghostwriter to assist.
Oh no,
Hmm.
no. I will be writing it. I have started writing. I've only written one comic series, Vampirella, and then one shot. But my mother has told me for years, she's like, you can draw. You're not very good at drawing, which she's right. I'm not. I only started drawing because I wanted to see how good Grandpa was, and I can't learn unless I do something. And then I'm like, oh my god, these people are really good with perspective. This is really hard, but I don't like it. But I've been writing for a long time. I just don't have the discipline, and I'm beginning to have the discipline now. And I listened to George Lucas the other day talk about writing the freaking first Star Wars. That man sat down from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. every single day for 3 years. And if he didn't have 5 pages written, he wouldn't get up. And that was how he wrote Star Wars. He said, I'm not like a naturally gifted writer, but I would sit down and I would do the work. And I think it was Charles maybe earlier, who Rusty, one of you guys said that it's not like you just get this download and go, I have to write. You have to be disciplined. Jeff, like Jim, I'm sure all of you, right? To do anything, it's work. And again, back to that maturity thing. Now I realize it's not going to just like download to me in one of my sick dreams, and I'm going to be like, here it is. So yes, to stop the long tangent. No ghostwriter.
Well, I was going to ask, because I get the sense that you, in your own right, are a creative person. So you were saying that you write.
I do. Yep.
I knew it. I knew that you were creative.
Thanks. I'm not saying I write well. I still have a lot of words to learn, a lot of writing, a lot of books to read. But the foundation's there.
Is the Florida Museum open daily?
No. So the Florida Museum was originally going to be opened in 2020, and then COVID flipped us all upside down. And then we didn't reopen, and we didn't open officially until 2022. We were open 2022 for a single month in February. Remember, I'm at the mercy of the collectors, and I'm just doing what I can do when they allow their original art to be seen. We did it for 2024 as well. And then 2025, we were hit by like 3 hurricanes in one season, and the paintings were not in there. I just have to preface that before anyone freaks out. But the whole building was flooded with 6 feet of water. And my mom actually just finished the renovations with everything. She has another house in Inglewood, which also got 6 feet of water. So it's been quite the journey of getting everything back. But we did have an exhibit that I mentioned earlier in Sarasota in the fall at our studio. It's not the museum. It's not as great, but we had the original art out. So hopefully we'll get that back open soon.
Great. From Bobby, we have, what did you think of the Painting with Fire documentary?
I love the Painting with Fire documentary. It's my grandpa's cute version where he just reminds me of like this like little like creature. He would hate me saying that, but he did. He was just so adorable. And then just to hear like I was looking through stills of it today, and I was like, I got to go watch it again because just seeing like everyone all like young, like Brahm and all of these like amazing artists that have gone on to become greats themselves, talking about Frazetta, Bernie Wrightson, all these greats in this. So I have to go back and brush up on the documentary. My favorite part, of course, is the bloopers with Ralph Bakshi. They were hysterical together. And Ralph, I remember Ralph very vividly. So to kind of rewatch that is like getting it's basically being able to like feel like grandpa's here again, right? Because that's the version I knew of him. So I love it for mainly that reason.
We have a very nice comment here from Trish. Sara is awesome. Had the pleasure meeting her at NYCC, and she is so down to earth and a beautiful soul.
Thank you. It's so sweet. I think I remember Trish. I think
Yes.
I think I remember you, Trish. I don't remember a lot of things, but I think I remember you, Trish. You were really, really, I'm going to use the word again, cute. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Hi, Trish.
Okay, there's no more questions in the chat. Does anybody have any last minute questions that they've got brewing? I only have one more question for you, and that's do you have any new projects on the horizon that you want to plug here with us today?
I have I all I have is FrazettaGirls.com. You can see what we're working on and our social medias, and we're always on our damn phones. So you will always see what's coming if you follow us on the social media, which circling back, I have to say, it's so funny because Frazetta Girls, our brand, right? Like it really grew through social media. And, a lot of people ask, they're like, what would your grandpa, though, think of like social media and stuff? And I actually started grandpa a Facebook in 2010, and he was on Facebook. And because it was so sad, he was very isolated in his like last years, especially like after my grandma passed away, like everything was like totally upended for him in terms of his life. And he lived like a very solitary life at the end. So for him, Facebook was like what it was originally intended for, instead of just sharing terrible news all day, connection. And my grandpa looked at Facebook and he was like, I'll do his impression. He was like looking at it. He's like, all these people are here for me. And I'm like, yeah, grandpa, look. And I was accepting friend requests. And he was like, what is that person saying? And he would just get such a kick out of it. He would be reading the comments and be like, wow. He's like, and then you get all like, just to do like his little shoulder shake and be like, pretty good, huh? I'm like, yeah, grandpa, like, look at your fans. They love you. But then unfortunately, the family stuff, they shut my Facebook down. And I'm like, what? That was when after grandpa passed away, because you can't have a Facebook with someone who has passed away. I think you can now, but at the time you couldn't. But yeah, that's so social media, it's like it's a proud thing for me, where I'm like, we got our momentum going from social media, and I know grandpa would have approved of it because I made him a Facebook.
That's awesome. That's so sweet. And I mean, like I said, your Instagram is like at almost 500,000.
It's not
Like
enough,
that's
LeeLa. You have to
it's
go more. I don't know why it's stagnant right now. I'm like, well, I'll
everybody
bring it.
go follow.
It's shadow banned because of the nudity.
Everybody here needs to go follow on Instagram if you aren't already following on Instagram. If you don't have Instagram, get it to
Get it,
follow.
download it. We got to get to 500.
At least let's get to 1 million.
Million. Frank Frazetta deserves a million. Well, we
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
gotta curate it right too. That's not pressures on us too.
Oh, we do have a new question. Have you considered a Frazetta-verse RPG? Just mash together all of his heroes, villains, monsters, etc. into a mad RPG setting.
We 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 just did an RPG with Fire and Ice. I would like to do a Frazetta RPG when the story is there. Like we need a foundation. We need a I wouldn't say definitive. I don't think there will ever be, like you all talked about earlier, there's many ways people can appreciate characters and through many venues, but I would like to get more of a formal story in place before that's to happen and we expand on different worlds.
All right, last call for questions, everybody.
And thank you all for the questions. They've been really fun to answer.
Yeah, they've really like carried this. Hey, it's been it's been great. I had like some backup questions that I have already asked you, but I was like, I'm gonna have to get this started, but everybody's just been rolling in with questions. It's been phenomenal.
Yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. You've done great, LeeLa.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Well, I guess if that's it for questions, then I will wrap this up. So thank you so much for being here. Again, you were a huge wi oh, wait a second. Oh, that's for us. To the organizers, will you do this again next year? That's a very good question. I'll let Dr. Garstad come on here with an answer for that after I thank Sarah appropriately for being here. So yes, thank you so much, Sarah. This was a pleasure. This is like I was supposed to work today, and this is a way better use of my time. So
Oh, thank you so much. I had a really fun time. And you guys, like I said, this whole conference has been wonderful. I've learned so much. And I really appreciate you making me the keynote. I was a little bit like, woo, pressure's on. I really need to be able to read today. But I really, really appreciate it. And I had a great time.
oh, there's one question that slid in. Are you heading to the East Coast for any cons?
The only con is San Diego Comic Con for a panel. We will. The reason we have taken off from cons is because we do plan on having more pop-up events around the country. I can't promise with original art, but definitely with Frazetta Girls presence and merchandise and stories of Frazetta.
Amazing. And then all the thank yous are just rolling in, talking about how awesome you are, Sarah. So,
Oh gosh, that's silly. Thank
and
you.
so humble too.
Uh,
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I'll pass it over to Dr. Garstad here, if he's got any final words. And yeah, thanks, everybody.
I would hold on. I think I have to pin myself. Give me a moment. Add a pin. I would simply like to thank everyone, especially my students who organized this and did so much hard work. Um, I always think people will live up to the challenges you set for them, and you have all proved that in this semester, this elongated semester. Well done. And I'm also very grateful to all of the participants, especially our keynote speaker, who talked for over an hour, which I would have found challenging. It was delightful to listen to you, Sarah. Um, but everyone contributed so much, and thank you all for showing up. Uh, it was it was nice to have an audience. So, on that note, I am going to stop the recording.
I just need to say that Chad says that we should have all gotten A pluses on this. And I would like Chad to know that this cheap guy gave us A's. So,
In all fairness, you had to have a grade before the course was over. So there's that too, right? So I mean, I had no idea how this was going to pan out. Oh, and was it Jeff Shanks who asked if this was going to happen again next year?
It
no,
wasn't
I
even
don't
me this time. I
know.
It
swear
It
it
wasn't
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 even
me
you
that.
this time. Yeah. No. Once again, for the record, this will go on YouTube. That is called being shanked. All right? And that's how things get done in the Robert E. Howard world. All right. Take care, everyone.